Ho, ho, ho.
Hello again, Hogfather.
Hello, Francine. How are you?
I'm very well. I must say, you have uncanny ability to turn up as Joanna has just left temporarily or not turned up herself. Have
I
you two
don't know.
fallen out? I'm getting a bit worried.
I have no problem with Joanna whatsoever. I do not like that people say we look and sound alike.
Yeah, it's a little insulting, I think, considering you spent so much time on that beard, which I must say has now covered almost all of your face, which is quite different from last year. That's beautiful. Have you
Thank
been
you.
eating well?
I have been eating fantastically, Francine. No, I can't see Joanna. I came in and landed on the back balcony, and there's no sign of her.
Oh no, she smokes out the front.
Yeah, well, I'll try and catch her on the way out then. But in the meantime, how are you, Francine? You having a delightfully merry Hogswatch?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, I put up a little tree. I've got a couple fairy lights behind me, and I've put on red lipstick. It's about as festive as I get. So
I support this. This is a sensible amount of festive, Francine. Well
yes,
done.
good. How are the boars?
Boars are lovely, healthy, snorting, doing as they do.
Yes, they.
I might have to clean up Joanna's balcony on the way out.
Oh, don't worry about it. She'll be fine. She just sweeps it onto the street below. Um,
Excellent.
do you have any letters for us while you're here?
I have, Francine. Thank you for remembering to ask me. I have a few letters from lovely people.
I have so few lines to remember. I mean, questions, ad hoc questions, not lines.
This isn't fucking scripted. Stacey. Lovely Stacey. Stacey would like a burley and strong in the arm ballista for Christmas. Stacey, you shall have a burley and strong in the arm ballista. Remember to aim it at Tories.
Mhm.
Sorry. Hogswatch got political.
I think I went off on elves unionizing last year, so it's good. It's balanced now.
Oh, don't talk to me about fucking elves. Craig. Craig has written to me in his richest Scottish brogue, which I am obviously also speaking, and in his castle, not too dissimilar to the one on the traitors. I'm not having anything to do with that shit. Please, can we have world peace, happiness, and a hard-boiled egg? Well, I can do the egg, Craig, and make no promises about the rest. Olifie would like the ability to finish all the book series that they've started.
Oh wow, I think world peace might be easier.
Yeah,
If
Olifie, I will get
Olivia's
to you.
anything like me.
I will get to you after the world peace, but just read one more. One more. You can do it, Olifie. One more. Can I recommend the Discworld?
A very spooky man with tusks has just ordered you to, so I would.
Yes, the tusks are more implied in this
They're under
outfit.
the beard. Hogfather,
Under the beard.
that's
Under the
fine.
beard. Al, lovely Al from I don't know if you've heard of it, Francine. Desert Island Discworld.
Oh yes, yeah, no, I've heard of Al. All right.
Had a letter from Al. He's been dead good this year. Good for Al. Good for Al. So I was going to ask you to bring me some presents, but then I remembered you mostly dispense meat and meat byproducts. So Al would like the greatest meat dish ever created that one used to be able to get in the City Cafe in Edinburgh. It is the Yorkie Porky, two large German sausages with a seam of molten cheese running through them, wrapped in crispy bacon, and served on a mountain of mustard seed mashed potato and a giant Yorkshire pudding with gravy. And
Cool.
if not, Al would like some port scratchings. Al, I can maybe do the port scratchings, mate.
I mean, are you not tempted to try?
I'm absolutely gonna make that. I mean, no, that's
I mean, would you leave the recipe for Joanna?
I will absolutely leave that recipe for Joanna. She would love that. That sounds fucking excellent. Ben, you might know Ben. He's from the Pratchett podcast over in
yes.
4X. He's passed on a letter to me from a lovely 4Xian. Lovely 4Xian writes, "G'day, how are you? It's me, Bronson."
Oh, I see we're committing to the vid for this one. I don't know if I'm going New Zealand now.
I'm not doing the fucking accent.
All right.
I live in New Rimwood, Lamados in 4X. My sister reckons you don't come all the way here, but Miss Faye at school says we're no further away from the hub than plenty of other places, so why not? She doesn't let us sing the song about your boars, though. Did you know one of them has a name that's very rude here? Can you tell me which one? She won't say.
Ruta.
Yeah, I'm going with Ruta.
Yeah.
Pretty warm here at Hogswatch, even though it is winter, so I drew a picture of an outfit you could wear to stay cool. I hope you like the thongs. Bronson, I love the thongs.
What? I want to see this. Where's that?
There's no...
Oh.
Fancy. For Hogswatch, can I please have a Real Levers portable junior clacks tower? I'll be able to send messages all the way to Bugger Up. Bronson, You may have what you wish, but don't send messages to Bugger Up. It's a silly place.
It'll only encourage them.
Exactly. Bronson promises to leave me out some prawn sandwiches and one of his dad's beers for Hogswatch. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bronson. I look forward to a prawn sandwich and a beer. Be a nice break from the pork pies. Please leave it refrigerated. There's risks with prawn sandwiches. And lastly, PD. PD is written in. And PD says, Dear Hogfather, this year has been to the passage of time what foul old Ron has been to personal hygiene. Sounds like PD has not had the best of years. So, PD says he's being selfish this year, on top of wishing health and contentment to our dear little co-fae. There's no fucking fae on this, are there, Francine? You didn't tell me about fairies.
I did definitely not touch that enchanting looking object out in the forest several months ago, no.
Good, thank
Absolutely
you.
not.
On top of wishing health and contentment to the dear little co-whatevers and our lovely community, PD would like a break. Have a nice Hogswatch day, and for the year of the querulous megapode, he'd like to live an extremely quiet, peaceful, yes, meandering life in utterly predictable and precedented times, possibly with free electricity for the year. Now, PD, we're all quite familiar with unprecedented times, and I can't promise that precedent will return to our lives. But this is the time of year when we celebrate coming out of the dark, and maybe we can celebrate a hope that precedent will return. And if nothing else, PD, I promise you that I will not send you the cheerfulness fairy.
That, I think, is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely.
Or worth the fairy's weight in gold, possibly. How much does a promise weigh in gold, Hogfather? What a twee question to ask.
As much as an atom of justice or beauty, but a little bit more than a bean hidden in a stew.
Very good, very good.
Now, Francine, I'm very sorry to have missed Joanna again. Do send her my best, but I've got to crack on.
I think I usually forget to mention you here, to be honest, but I'll try, because you'll leave that recipe for the appalling sounding sausage cheese seam.
Absolutely, I will leave that recipe for Joanna. However, must fly, busiest time of year, you know how it is. Good night.
Good night.
On Gouda, on Rooter, on Tusker, on Snouter. Oh, sorry about that, darling. There was a badger caroling.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm out of the deep dark woods, Eddie.
Apparently, chorus of voles. Lovely little hedgehog singing soprano. Did I miss anything? You're right. Did you get another coffee?
No, yeah, in a minute. Do you know what? Apropos of nothing, I think it's just as well I never carried on with theatre.
Yeah, you know, me too. Right, cool. Do you want to make a podcast?
Yeah, let's make a podcast.
Hello and welcome to The Truth Shall Make You Fret, a podcast in which we are usually reading and recapping every book from Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, one at a time in chronological order. I'm Joanna Hagan.
And I'm Francine Carroll.
And it's time for our bonus Hogswatch Extravaganza 2022.
I can't believe it.
Note on spoilers before we crack on. We are a spoiler light podcast. Heavy spoilers for the book, The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, and anything in the Discworld canon up to that point is fair game. We will avoid spoiling any major future events in the Discworld series, and we're saving any and all discussion of the final Discworld novel, The Shepherd's Crown, until we get there, so you, dear listener, can come on the journey with us.
Flying through the night sky on the Hogfather's sleigh. I'm not going to get more abstract. So I remember last year I said something about skeletal grandfather and it all got grim.
Yep, that did get depressing. We are going to be talking today about The Amazing Maurice, the new movie adaptation, but we will very pointedly warn you before we start that discussion in case you don't want to be spoiled on it if you haven't had a chance to see the movie yet. Follow-up. We have some follow-up from our last episode.
We only just put that out.
And yet.
I just released that.
Sorry, listeners, this is probably coming out on Christmas Eve, but we're recording this on Monday. So we have follow-up from the episode that came out today.
Yeah.
From Olifi on Reddit. Love the book, but there is a point where Keith gets handed a trombone to play. To quote the book, Keith took it, wiped the mouthpiece, put it to his mouth, pressed the keys a few times, and then blew one long note. As a former band nerd, this struck me as odd since trombones do not, as a rule, have valves, and the pitch is instead altered by moving a slide. Some quick research has shown us that there is in fact such thing as a valve trombone, and that they were first made and used in the 1800s. The sound wasn't as good as a regular trombone. Military bands did use them for their compactness. I suppose hitting the musician in front of you with your slide during a march wasn't appreciated. So it turns out Corporal Knopf really could have had a trombone with keys.
Yes. As it happens, when I was meandering through the news groups the other day in preparation for that episode, I also saw somebody make the point about the trombone in the first place. Somebody else comment that many tenor trombones do have valves in addition to the slide. Mine being David Undertown, commenter in 2001, certainly does. It saves you from having to use sixth position so much and helps fill in some of the range, as you say. Not too sure about the history of the valve trombone. Long speculation. And then Pratchett replies, "Thank you."
Excellent. Well, it was nice
Confirm.
of him to be That's a good enough confirmation. And then another question from Ben off of Pratchett.
Another? What do you mean another? You don't know of any former questions from Ben off of Pratchett?
I know, but he's asked questions for the podcast before.
Oh, I see. Of course, yes.
And we just did a Q&A episode, and Ben asked some questions.
Fine.
Follow-up Maurice question. My reading of the bit where Dangerous Beans dies is that Maurice, in his killer cat brain state, kills him. Is that how you read it? Does it change your feelings about the deal Maurice makes with death?
Oh.
Do you have any thoughts?
I hadn't read it like that. Now I want to reread it and read it like that again. I
think it's intentionally ambiguous, but it sort of fades to black as Maurice pounces.
Yeah.
And then Maurice comes out of the fire with Beans.
He's still yelling Maurice, isn't he, by that point? So he's not like nearly dead.
Exactly. So,
but then he could have been carrying him, and then smoke inhalation had done it.
Yeah. I prefer thinking of it as smoke inhalation than Maurice killing him.
I can see. I think it could go either way. I don't think it would. I guess it would change my feeling on it, but not in a to the negative or to the positive way. Just in a, I'd have to think about it from a new angle. But I like that as an alternative interpretation. That is.
I like it as an interpretation, and I do think it makes the deal with death make a bit more sense. That it's about assuaging his own guilt as well as just feeling like the rats need Dangerous Beans.
Yep. No, I don't have a proper answer for you there, Ben, but good observation. I like it.
And then we have a couple of general listener questions, as that is this is the Hogswatch episode, and that is what we do.
Yeah, even though we just did that, which is why we've only got a couple.
Craig has sent us various requests for guests for next year.
Okay.
I'm making absolutely zero promises about anything, but I can promise that we've got some fun things lined up for next year that might be enjoyable. All right, and Melissa from the lovely Bewilderbeast pod has a couple of questions, including the traditional annual Hogswatch question: of the remaining books left, which is the one you're internally squeeing about the most? And putting out last year, I said Amazing Maurice, which is quite fitting. What's your answer?
Well, I've got the list up once again. And I think right this minute, because I'm already thinking very hard about Nightwatch, I'm not internally squeeing so much as internally clockworking. So I'm going to say going Postal.
That's fair.
Or Thud. Love both of them very much. Going Postal, it'll be nice to go somewhere completely different for a bit.
Yes.
If not geographically, then internally.
I have a couple of answers. I mean, Nightwatch I'm excited about, but with a healthy apprehension of how do I talk about that book, because I think it's just so beloved.
I'm just fucking diving right in. I'm trying not to think about that.
I believe Monstrous Regiment is next year, and I am insanely excited to talk about Monstrous Regiment. Expect emotions, possibly some gender.
At least one gender.
And non-Discworld, we're going to do Nation next year.
Yes.
I cannot wait to talk about Nation.
Yes. That to me is the more awkward one to talk about. It's one of my favourite books, but it's many layered.
So yeah, Nation is going to be a interesting conversation that I am very much looking forward to getting my teeth into.
When are we doing that?
I don't know which month yet.
Okay, cool, good.
But it will be next year.
Okay.
I just told you I don't
well,
have
and
a
remind me
schedule
what year
yet.
that is again.
Fuck
If you can,
knows.
Joanna. I don't mean to turn this into an interrogation. Just a slight concern at this point that you may have become unhinged from time and will start floating up to the ceiling.
No,
kind of an old Mother Dismas Bursar cross is what I'm fearing for you at the moment.
With a hint of lobsang thrown in for good measure. Second question, and I'm going to link to the actual tweet in the show notes, but Melissa has a skeleton dressed as Death and has bought him a Hogfather jacket for Christmas, but it unfortunately stops quite short around the pelvic area.
It's extremely good. It looks like a 1960s advert starring Twiggy.
Very much so. But Melissa would like to know, should the Hogfather have pants, or should Melissa start a death charity calendar where 1 month he's a suggestively dressed firefighter, suggestively dressed Hogfather without pants, suggestively dressed pizza delivery skeleton, charity for the kids?
I think it'd be incredibly disrespectful to do that calendar, and I insist that you do.
Please, thank you. I should also point out that Melissa clarified that she meant pants as in the trouser kind of pants and not the way English people say pants.
Well, either would be a start. If we're going to take the English word pants as well, I feel like big comic book boxer shorts could work here.
Or like frilly knickerbockers, you know, the ones that go to your knees.
Either way, heart print.
Yeah, either way, heart print. It also reminded me of the delight of the Georgia Nicholson books and just replacing random words in songs with pants. Now I'm choosing between my two favourite Christmas carols, Pants the Herald Angels Sing and Oh Pants All Ye Faithful.
Truly beautiful, both.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Glory to the newborn pants.
Pants. Okay, before we go completely off the rails, I think it's time we dive in. Before we go even more off the rails, I think it's time that we dive into our movie chat for The Amazing Maurice. Proper here be spoilers, listeners. From this point, we are going to be talking about the movie. If you don't want to hear what we have to say, then merry Hogswatch and a happy new year of the Querulous Megapode.
Yes.
Okay, so The Amazing Maurice.
Yeah, we saw that on Saturday. It's now Monday, so it's reasonably fresh in our minds.
Doesn't mean we remember any of it.
No. We did see it at the cinema, though, which means I was paying more attention than I do when I have to watch these things at home.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, this is the first Terry Pratchett or Discworld feature film, as in released in the movies. Very exciting. We did talk a bit at the end of the last episode about this being kind of an exciting new turn for Pratchett, and it was a lot about it in Marks of the article for the Telegraph, which we linked in the last thing. So yes, it came out this week, December 2022, at least in the UK. Made by Sky, along with a couple of other German animation companies and things, and with the full support of Narrativia. Directed by Toby Genkel, co-directed by Florian Westerman, and screenplay by Terry Rossio, who wrote, among other things, one of my favourite movies, The Road to El Dorado.
Is that so?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
And I'm pretty sure that film is why I'm bisexual.
Overall, right, cause and effect. We're going for that, are we? Yeah.
I'm going to try this one more time. Right, overall impressions.
Yeah. I liked it, which is not a given for me. I'm not a big fan of screen adaptations of Pratchett books as a rule. I did enjoy Hogfather quite a lot last year, but I think I was more critical of it than I will be today, because I had a very nice time indeed, and I was very impressed.
It was really good fun. The animation's really cute. I really enjoy, especially with seeing a kids film, exactly what the BBFC states is the problem if it's, say, a PG.
Oh yeah.
So this one contained mild fantasy threat.
I was mildly fantasy threatened.
And that's what you can really want from a film.
That's good. I like that.
But yeah, considering how much I love the book and was really ready to... I was trying to go in very open-minded, but a bit of me was just ready to fucking hate it. I had a lovely time and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, some of the things I had about the design were still but it's very much a subjective. It's not that I think they fucked up. It's just my preference.
Your taste.
Yeah.
One thing I did really enjoy about watching it in the cinema is especially because it's like the weekend before Christmas. There are lots of families there and lots of young kids, and you could kind of very much pick up the vibe that they were all really enjoying it and
Yeah.
giggling and getting excited. And I was just thinking how nice it is that, like, for a lot of kids, those kids, that might be like their first memory of going to the cinema and one of the first films they ever saw in the cinema.
Oh.
And then they might take that and end up getting into all the other Pratchett books, and that's a really lovely thought.
Yeah.
And then they'll
Although
read the book.
it's going to be a bit of a shock if you go out and buy the book right after that for your little kiddie wink, isn't it?
Yeah, no, a little bit.
Slightly more than mildly fantasy threatened.
Yeah, but maybe having seen
Mildly
the film,
existentially threatened.
maybe having seen the film, they won't mind the horror in the book as much.
Perhaps.
I think sometimes, like, especially when you're younger, watching a film of something can help you get into the book of it.
Well, as we said, I'm not sure it's the kids that would have so much of an issue as the parents.
Yeah. So one thing I really liked about what the film did was how they did this framing device around it.
Mm-hmm.
A very self-aware one of it's largely Militia in her library, kind of narrating the film and reading like the Mr. Bunsey excerpts.
Yes. Yeah, it's also incredibly self-aware, more so even than the book. So it's Militia just kind of kicking through the fourth wall every now and again when she feels like it, replacing inner narrative with outer narrative, but to camera.
Yeah, because you have Maurice joining in and doing some of the voiceovery narrating, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because so much of what Pratchett writes is very much focused on a certain character's point of view, it's very nice to be able to still put that in visually, because I think that's something that a lot of films can miss.
Yeah, I think it's cool that, again, yeah, it's kids watching it. I quite like the thought that they're learning about things like framing devices and foreshadowing, like, and they were being spelled out and saying what it was. I think that's nice. I think more children should be forced to learn about literature.
Yeah, it's like quite educational, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a bit odd in that, and we'll probably go back to that later, some of it was in this adult voice because that was Militia's voice.
Yeah.
And she was meant to be a kid, but she had a very deep adult voice. And so the whole kind of, I think that almost maybe blurred the line more with the narrative and the fourth wall breaking, but
No, it kind of worked though. I like it.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Bunsey stuff is really perfect. So you get the kind of animation of the book and the little characters interrupting, like talking to each other and the story being told.
Yeah.
And it looked like as much as I would imagine a book called Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure looks.
Yeah, it was Beatrix Potter, wasn't it?
It was very Beatrix Potter. But the way it's interspersed in the story is almost exactly the same as how it's interspersed in the story in the book. So you get the tension in the Bunsey story of he's going into the dark wood as things start getting darker in the book and in the film.
I think it's almost more prominent in the film because it's easy to ignore in the book.
Yeah, it made me
appreciate image at the start of a chapter.
Yeah, it made me appreciate a bit more how that's all paced in the book.
Yeah,
because it matched the pacing there perfectly.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so the characters and the cast. It's good casting, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with Maurice, voiced by, well, Maurice or Maurice, voiced by Hugh Laurie.
Can't be Mauricing it.
There is some debate in the film.
But Hugh Laurie, yes, he did a good job because I wasn't just thinking, oh, that's Hugh Laurie the whole time.
No, but I think it's a familiar enough voice that I think Maurice is one of my least favorite character designs of the film. It works in the film, but like ever since you pointed out the fact that the teeth are kind of weird to me.
The teeth never got that much better, but I wrote a note right near the start saying the human eyes are very off-putting. He had human eyes, but then they turned cat eyes when he had his like cat break.
Yeah.
So human eyes with the whites around the iris, and I was looking at like it's very uncanny valley with your human teeth and your human eyes there, bad, but it did make the eye transformation more dramatic.
It did.
And I liked his monobrow. I think that helped roughen up his face a bit.
A little bit. I still don't love that it was a ginger cat because like he's described as a mangy tabby and I just like the look of it, but I guess a ginger cat's probably a lot easier to animate.
Yeah.
Because it's a more consistent color palette and it works. It fits with the tone of the film.
Yeah.
It's a very distinct looking thing.
Yeah. He needed to look a bit more beaten up if you ask me, but
yeah, he could have done with being a bit scruffier. But there's something about Hugh Laurie's voice that has me just a little bit instantly charmed anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good tail though, very well animated tail.
Yeah, considering it's a big puffball, there's a lot of expression in it. One thing, the animation, the paws were fucking spot on.
Yes,
That's a little detail to go on, but like when his paws are spreading, like when he's having a stretch, that's very, very cat.
that's a good point. Yeah, I mean the animation in general is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Who else then? Oh, Keith, Himesh Patel. Um, he's probably one of the changes about the film I like the least. They do change his character a bit.
Mm-hmm. How do you
Like
mean?
they just make him. He's a bit more insecure. He's got less of the quietly clever thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a bit sort of clumsier and sillier and pratfally.
He's
He,
your typical Pixar character now.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
He's very like interested by Militia straight away. Like she does her first incredible working out the whole plot, and his response is like, "Oh, I think I love her."
Mm.
He doesn't get a chance to work anything out, like puzzle out solutions, quite as much. He approves when she gives them the laxative antidote, which is a huge change in character from the book.
Yeah. I think just the lack. He was definitely a slightly head in the air genius in the book, wasn't he? Which you've missed in favor of relatability in the film, I think.
Yeah, he's a bit more of just an airhead.
And I don't feel like every protagonist needs to be relatable, which is a general complaint I have with pop media now. But
yeah, I would have liked if he was a bit quieter, a bit cleverer, and falling down a bit. I get why they made the changes. Again, it's a kids' film.
Mm-hmm.
And he was funny.
I should say now, actually, early on, I do realize that when I'm speaking in this generally wanky manner, whatever I'm speaking about, but now I'm going to be speaking about a kids' film, and I do feel a bit self-conscious about that. You're just all going to have to get on the ride with us here.
Yeah,
and pretend that a kids' film it should be analysed as much as anything else. Or agree, not pretend, agree with us on this, that it should be. Because it's teaching your children, listeners.
And it's a Terry Pratchett film.
Yes.
So Militia, voiced by Emilia Clarke. You already pointed out that the voice feels a bit deep for a young character.
It's just I don't know why children are all voiced by adults now. I know quite often they were, but they used to make their voices more childlike then, and nobody does voice actors anymore. They just get in actors. So
yeah, and like I love Emilia Clarke a lot, I really do, but I can't hear her voice and not just go, "Oh, it's Emilia Clarke."
But yeah, she was good. It was fine. But there were a few moments throughout I was like, why is this grown woman talking like this?
They kind of, so I didn't really mention with Keith, but they do play off more the of a romance between Keith and Militia.
Yeah.
Which
I thought that was stupid, but whatever.
I can kind of see why they did it.
Why? We keep saying this. We can see why you did it. Why? Explain. We're meant to be analysing this.
I think it's kind of, I know it's a kids' film, but it's still just like an expected bit of a movie thing. Like it's another bow to put on the end.
Mm-hmm.
And but you're thinking it's an animated film. It's kind of a play on like not quite fairy tales, but that sort of story where you'd sort of maybe end up with the boy and the girl together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another excuse to play with tropes. Mm-hmm. Like they get to give her all the dialogue. At one point she's sort of saying, "Oh, well, if you had someone else, then we could end up together because there needs to be something standing in the way."
Mm-hmm.
And getting too absorbed with it. And just like I said before, you know, in the book, the being a part of someone else's storyline is a big character moment for her. They use the romance to give her a bit more emotional motivation in that, and that becomes quite a very loud and emotional moment where it's almost like an offhand comment in the book. Yeah, it's not as emotional.
Yeah, I think on reflection, why I don't think it worked so well is because Pratchett, I think, leaves his happy ever afters open-ended, and he has said explicitly before, "Oh, you never think about the next bit, do you? Well, think about the next bit now." And I feel like something like this, and again, I'm just going to overthink this children's story for a second, but they're meant to now be quite prominent figures in a town. They're 13, 14-year-olds. They're not going to stay together. They're going to be fucking horrible to each other at some point. They're meant to be part of a bureaucratic system.
Well, the film gets
the economy of this town, Joanna, relies on Keith. What happens when he's moping at home because Militia's being a twat? As we know she will.
Tell you what, I am going to put a pin in this argument and come back to it later when we talk more about
Are we
some of the
having an
changes
argument?
they made to the story.
Okay.
No, I mean like we're presenting arguments, not we're
Okay.
fighting each other.
Okay.
Darktan, voiced by Ariane Bakare,
Mhm.
who I don't think I've actually seen in much else apart from this.
No, me neither, but that's nothing. I know no
He
more.
has been in a lot of things. It's just that none of the I have not watched any of the things. And it feels like he got a bit dumbed down in places. Like you don't get to see him totally fixing a trap by himself and knowing all those little things.
No, he's very much just stock sergeant character, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not as cool in this. They
Yeah.
made him less cool, and that's not fair. Yes, we have Dangerous Beans, voiced by David Tennant, who also voiced Dangerous Beans in a radio play version of the book.
Is that so?
He did, which I've not actually listened to. Yeah, they made that character a little bit different, didn't they?
Yes.
They made him more of this like prophet figure worshipped by the other rats, with a very much like almost preachy vibe when it came to the Mr. Bunsey stuff.
That's true. It was a bit more preachy.
And I think the rats were all a little bit more into it, whereas it was obviously all a bit more divided.
Yeah, which is harder to show in a short movie, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of these changes like did streamline the story, which you needed to do. Like if this was a genuine page by page adaptation of the book, it just wouldn't have worked. So we've got Gemma Rossington as Peaches. Gemma Rossington, who to me will always be the head girl from St. Trinian's.
Oh, good.
God, terrible film that I love.
She was very good. She was very convincing. I nearly teared up when she did.
Yep, she does the little cough very well, the little hem. And it gets acknowledged as well, which I thought was a nice nod to the book. And when you have the reveal that Mr. Bunsey isn't real, they change the character and motivation around again, so she's more hurt by the reveal than Dangerous Beans.
Yeah,
which was nice because it gave Dangerous Beans a bit more to do.
It does kind of just play into the damsel there, doesn't it?
Yeah, she does go a bit damsel in distressy.
Whereas I feel like Prophet having a crisis of faith is more interesting. But again, it's kind of moving it towards the easily understandable.
Yeah. And then Nourishing, voiced by Julie Atherton. I thought she was all very sweetly done. And it was nice that they didn't just kind of push the character over to one side, because it's not the most important character of the whole thing.
Yeah. No, she was, yes, not a massive character, but good to have.
We have Sardines, voiced by Joe Sugg.
Yeah, not at all how I imagined Sardines, but pretty cool.
Younger. Like younger and bouncier, and I know bouncier is difficult considering all Sardines done is dance, but I always thought of him as one of the older rats. And he ends up being like a little bit more helpless in the film, because there needs to be, I haven't mentioned, but obviously Ham and Pork isn't in the film. So there needs to sort of be someone who is getting rescued and running around to be a rat present in the action a bit more, and that ends up being Sardines quite a bit. Which, it was a nice choice. I didn't hate that.
I've got to say, I like Darktan's nose scars.
Oh yeah, that was a good choice.
Not sure what they were meant to be exactly. Cat scratch? Could be
yeah,
cat
probably.
Scratch. I like it, yeah.
Tough rat who's had a tough life. We have possibly the most what the fuck part of the film, the Pied Piper, voiced by Rob Brydon.
One of the biggest changes, and one of the goodest, one of the best changes, I think, because what the fuck was that? That really creeped me out, and I think that was cool and good. I think it was cool and good, and also awful and appalling.
If you've opted to listen to this section without watching the movie, dear listener, and I understand that because I do that with stuff a lot, the version of the Pied Piper in the film, we don't get him coming to the town. There's a plot where his pipe is necessary to control the Rat King. So the militia and Keith have to go and steal it, and he is very leggy, dressed in oddly bright colours, and using his pipe to control animals so that he can eat them.
Yeah, he's not a wandering freelancer so much as a cryptid, I would say. Yeah. Moves around like a spider, has one of the creepiest houses I've ever seen, has little children's heads all over the place, like carvings, and like it's specifically said that he's led 100 odd children away, and then he says, "Oh, don't believe half the things you've said about me," and then one of them, I've forgotten which now, goes, "Which half? Aha, now I'm gonna cook you."
Yeah, and then it gets a bit Hansel and Gretel near the end of his, which is a nice way to bring in another German fairy tale, I guess. As much as it was great in a what the fuck is happening kind of way. I was a little bit disappointed purely because when I heard Rob Brydon was going to voice the Pied Piper, I imagined the Pied Piper from the book and that whole interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been fun because the Pied Piper in that is a sarcastic dickhead, and I think Rob Brydon can do that very well.
Yes.
Especially if he kept his full Welsh accent for it.
Yeah. Again, though, it's kind of bringing it into the what makes a normal movie ending, isn't it? And that's not a cooperation with nice Rob Brydon. It's a showdown with a big trench coat full of rats.
Yep.
Speaking of, oh no, wait, you got the mayor next.
Sorry, I didn't know you were going to segue. The mayor, voiced by Hugh Bonneville, who you might know as the Earl of Grantham.
Oh, I do know him as the Earl of Grantham. That is something I've watched.
He's also in the
Downton Abbey
Paddington
for our
films.
other listeners.
For our listeners who haven't watched Downton Abbey, he's also in the Paddington films, which I haven't watched because.
No, I haven't. I'm told they're good.
I'm told they're good. People love them, and apparently they're very sweet and make people happy, and that puts me off. But yeah, I'm disappointed we didn't get a little bit more mayor because they do make him very mayor of a small town in a kids' film, looking like he's the rotund sort.
No, he's very Tim Burton. Night Before Christmas mayor, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's almost exactly the same shape.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the Rat King / it's actually named in the credits as Boss Man.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, if you're listening to this having not watched the film, the Rat King is a large amount of rat. It's literally a whole bunch of rats in a trench coat.
Yep.
It's great.
Which is my favourite trope.
I like it
when in a trench coat.
We do like it when there's a lot of things in a trench coat. David Thewlis does creepy so well.
But I feel like what was most creepy about that character were the rat sound effects and the movements. I think A+, 10 out of 10 to the animators and soundscapers for that character, because the way he moves across the floor, the noises he makes when he eats and drinks, seem like many rats in a trench coat, as we've all seen so many times.
It's exactly how I would imagine many rats in a trench coat forming one sentient evil being.
Mm-hmm.
They go into a bit about, they kind of gloss over making the Rat King and describe it as putting a lot of rats in the bucket. That's a little bit more magical. And on top of that, a lot of the characters already know what a Rat King is. Like Maurice is aware of it and know it as this evil figure that you've got to, that's going to be impossible to fight.
Yes. That is an interesting one.
I think it's a nice shorthand for, like, especially kids watching it to be able to do, as you know, Bob, Rat Kings are evil, and also we shall need a special magical pipe to kill it.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, that was easier than trying to. Well, first you've got to explain what a guild is, and then you've got to explain what a masterpiece is, and then you got to, that does make sense. The eyes I thought were very creepy, very good.
Yeah, like lots of glowing rat eyes peeking out of one gap in the scarf.
Almost looked a bit spidery, didn't it? Actually.
Yeah.
The Rat King, when you see just the Rat King.
When it's the 8 rats with the tail.
I feel like somehow it's less creepy that they were all like facing inwards like that towards their little magic tail ball.
Yeah, and the voice is coming from the tail ball. I wasn't a big fan of that either. I wanted them to be sort of pulling at it and rearing the way they're described in the book. Because it seemed more like it was just a little mini rat Stonehenge.
Yeah. It was cool and a good effect, but not scary.
Yeah, that was a lot less scary than the large trench. We'd already had a trench coat full of rats, so it was probably best not to push our luck. The rat catchers I thought were a really good character design. They did the one thin one fat one. They're both very creepy looking.
Yeah. I think they kind of degenerated into the real idiot villain duo rather than actual characters. But yeah.
Yeah, because they know they've got another boss from the start, whereas obviously the whole thing in the book is that they don't know they're being controlled.
That's true, yeah.
So they very quickly become the silly little duo in this one. But for all that, they were very fun. And again, it worked for a kid's film. I want to quickly point out that they made Mr. Clicky somehow sentient.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. It was adorable.
It was. And it obviously set up that nice little line at the end where she can go, and the character we've almost forgotten about will come and save the day. And I was like, Maurice? And then Mr. Clicky appeared. I was like, oh, I genuinely had forgotten about him. All right, yeah, fair.
But again, impressive just how much personality can be put into a technically inanimate object. Like, it doesn't have a face. And so it's all in little movements, and it's really cute.
It was. And it did, of course, get its Deus Ex Pantaloons moment.
It did,
when it
very much so.
saved the world by upsetting the Joker's trousers. The Joker? Yeah, no, we're just going Batman.
The Pied Piper.
Pied Piper's trousers.
Yeah, he was dressed like a fool, though. So I can see how you'd call him the Joker.
I did think, actually, in the moment, because we weren't sure who was up the trousers at that point.
Yeah.
That militia just kicking him straight into the fire like that without checking that whoever was in the pantaloons was going to be able to ex-pantaloon.
Yeah.
Was a little hasty, but obviously it worked out well. But I would be having words if I were that little clockwork rat.
Oh, and then we have Death and the Bone Rat both turn up, and this is lovely. They've proper based it on the Paul Kidby design for the characters.
And you could tell it was based on a different style, but it seemed a lot more illustration-y, cartoony in those moments, which worked okay because they were going to a different dimension for them.
Yeah.
But I think it was noticeably a different artist.
Yeah, I mean, they're separate from the action.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah. Death, voiced by Peter Serafinowicz, who is brilliant and perfect as Death. He's also Death in the new Audible audiobooks. He is the one who, to me, I can only hear him say, Fran. Books and the shipping forecast. But it was a proper, like, slightly excited bounce in my seat moment when I saw, before anyone dies, we saw Death and the Bone Rat watching the action.
Yes.
And that was sort of, A, I was excited because I thought, oh, that means they're actually going to do that bit. And B, it was just like, oh, it's just nice to see them.
It is.
It's just nice to know that they're there.
It's nice to know the anthropomorphic personification of death is hanging around the outside of your scene, isn't it? That always comforts me. Well, someone's going to die. That's good.
Or maybe he's just having a near something experience.
Well, that's true. A lot of our favourites do pop in to say hi.
Cool.
This isn't gonna work. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Well, you tried. Cool. So, the film, The Amazing Maurice.
What about it?
Gonna
talk about it? All right, let's talk about it.
We're literally making a podcast on it, Francine.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, no, we should. Okay.
Yeah, we should talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how it changes from the source material. What have they toned down and what have they kept grim? What do you think?
Well, the first thing I noticed was a quote, because it's one of the big quotes in the books. And it's changed from when someone dies, it's just a word. And here it is. When someone gets hurt, it's just a word. So right away, I was like, so we're not going to deal with death today.
There is still some death in the film, but it is definitely toned back a bit.
Dies.
Well, we see deaths in the rat pit, but it's off screen.
Oh, that's true.
We're aware they're happening.
Yeah, that's true.
One bit that I think kept a bit of grimness in, but also really made me laugh, was a chain of dead rat skeletons going up to a thing of poison.
Yeah, I've got that both in stayed grim and made me laugh out loud. So what that says, I don't know, but it was very funny.
And obviously we have both Maurice and Dangerous Beans dying.
Briefly, yes.
Briefly, but that's still there. I think
but it's made a it's I don't know if it's made a comedy thing exactly, but it's not played as that sad. Maurice keels over, he doesn't put his head down. Yeah,
it's
I didn't find that particularly emotional.
It didn't make me cry, and it obviously does make me cry in the book.
Yeah.
You also it tones down the crisis of faith that Dangerous Beans goes through. I mentioned this a bit already. I don't think Peach's crisis of faith is comparable. Like, you don't get Dangerous Beans having this, God, we're just rats stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a shame. I think they could have kept some of that in.
Yeah. I think the big one, obviously, was leaving out Ham and Pork. That got rid of any of the kind of leadership tension as well as got rid of, obviously, the death of Ham and Pork. Got rid of, I think, the contrast and the similarity, which is interesting between him and Darktan. I think they just kind of rolled ham and pork into Darktan, except there was none of the conflict between the old and the new rats either, or
Yeah,
even within like their heads, kind of thing.
they kind of take out all of the internal politics of the rats, and there's only a couple of them that speak, and it's all just a bit sidekicky.
Yeah.
The rats are less of the focus. The focus is a lot more on the human characters and Maurice.
Yeah, and even a little less on Maurice and a bit more on the humans.
Yeah, very much.
Which is interesting because they made the humans quite not insipid, but like not. I mean, they're just Pixar characters. They're Pixar characters. It's fine, but
they're not as richly layered as the.
I mean, I think Militia is, to be fair, but I say, yeah, Militia is kind of the protagonist at this one, even though Maurice is the flashy showman.
Yeah, very much
the front man. Yeah.
I mean, I think like just looking at it as an overall film, they've obviously streamlined it and cut a lot, especially at the end. And I think that's a good thing. As I mentioned, the page-by-page adaptation just wouldn't be a fun film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do miss having the internal politics of the rats a certain amount.
I think it might have added to it. Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want to do the classic Pratchett 3 ending, especially because the Pratchett 3 ending is almost epilogue-y. It's and here's how things actually end with admin and whatever, and that doesn't translate as well to screen, to be fair.
Yeah, like I love the committee meeting ending of the book, but I can see where they cut that in favor of look at how nice and happy the town is now.
I think the other massive thing they got rid of was the torture, of the rats, the huge cages full of rats.
Yeah.
I mean, it mentioned at one point, and you've crammed rats into cages. Like, you didn't really cram them into cages. You all had your own roomy cage. It was
yeah, they gloss over a lot of the horrors that are done to rats.
I don't think fear was really shown.
No, there was very little fear.
A mild fantasy threat, not a depiction of fear. I can't help contrasting any of this kind of stuff with Watership Down.
Yes.
Because that is something that really showed fear and politics and death within a children's film, and was perhaps rightly avoided by a lot of parents because of that. So I kind of see why you're not going full Watership Down with it. But
but it could have coped with having a bit of Watership Down in it, even though that film traumatized me when I was in primary school. Because we were shown it in school.
Oh, fun. And I watched it at home. I don't remember it traumatizing me. Mum was quite horrified when she found out that Dad brought it home or watched it on the telly or whatever. But I don't remember it upsetting me more than whatever.
I had like full-on nightmares about it.
Well, you're a very sensitive soul, aren't you?
Yes, that's what they often say about me. Sensitive Joanna.
You put it on a front, Joanna, but you're having nightmares about rabbits. What does that say about us?
Had nightmares about rabbits. I was 7.
No, I'm just going to update the canon now. Have regular nightmares about rabbits.
Look, they're fucking creepy, all right?
No, okay. Do you know what? I've said it now. They are kind of creepy. Yeah.
They just look at you, twitching.
Yeah, they've got like sheep faces.
Yeah, and they don't make noises.
Bodies. Yeah, no, it's not good. No, they do. They scream, mate.
Oh, yeah, all right, fine.
That's worse. But they added they added some creepy bits, like the creepy eyes and the hands grabbing peaches.
Oh yeah.
They left in the rat pit. Once I saw that they were going to leave out the rat cages, I was wondering what they'd even put in the pit.
Yeah, and they kept the pit in, and again, it's played a bit more for laughs. Rob Wilkins gets a cameo in that bit as well.
Yes, remind me who he is.
I think he was the voice of like the rat pit announcer guy.
Yeah, cool.
So that was fun. They bring the Rat King in as a villain much earlier. You see the Rat King, like the boss man, the rats in the trench coat, arguing with the mayor. And I think that worked to build in the fear where they'd taken out some of the other stuff.
Yeah, although of course, if you're watching that for the first time, you have no idea what that is.
No, but it's clearly a bad guy, and you've got David Thewlis doing bad guy voice.
He does do bad guy voice very well.
He is. He's got such a gorgeous voice.
He's Lupin, by the way, guys. So I couldn't recognize either. Joanna had to tell me.
He's Lupin, and he was also in Sandman. They move the big confrontation at the end out into the open. It's out in the daytime and in front of the town, rather than in the sort of cellars and things underneath.
Yes. Yeah, it's a showdown.
Yeah. It's
a
very
much
much a showdown.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that bit, the moment where all the rats were revealed, the like writhing mass, that was very cool and good and scary. I feel like, and this is very subjective, I think kinetic force to drag them in is not as cool as mind control.
Yeah, they do a tiny bit of the mind control stuff. You hear the Rat King's voice in like Dangerous Beans' mind,
Mm-hmm.
and that bit felt very ominous. But the fact that it's only done once kind of makes it a bit shit.
Yeah. I guess kinetic force is obviously easier to show.
Yeah, very much so. Actually,
But he is very
PD.
spooky on the whole. I'm finding things to criticize because it's more interesting than just saying this is
I
good, this
liked
is
it.
good, this is good, this is good. But overall, I like the way it moved. I like the character design, the weird funnel shape. I liked yeah, I like every moment of reveal for him. I thought was very cool. I thought the way they did his gloved hands was very creepy and cool. And like you
Yeah,
can, because at that point you're imagining the kind of feeling of it. It was like, ugh.
that's all going to be kind of wriggling.
Yeah.
PD sent in an interesting email actually.
Mm.
Also really loved the film. The changes made were understandable to make it more family friendly, but was wondering like what it felt like it was missing. It still felt like there was another gear, but you missed the what Pratchett what PD said was um we lose Terry.
Mm.
Without Terry as the audible narrator and without his access to the inside of people's minds and the surrounding darkness, they become just good stories.
Yeah.
And you could say of any author, most of the trick of a good film adaptation is to keep the feel intact when you lose the internal narrative. But it was only watching Maurice that it dawned on me just how much we lose without Terry's voice talking to us. And I thought that was a really interesting point. That I think that is the biggest thing missing. You can't have as much of the fear and the ominous and the just how everyone feels about it without each character saying, "I feel this way about this now."
Yeah, and even though you did have Militia explicitly saying some of the cool framing bits, yeah, there was less of
Yeah.
that.
Especially when it comes to like Maurice as a character. I think Maurice is probably hit the hardest by that because you see brief moments of him sort of having a conversation with himself, but it's not the same as his internal dialogue with his conscience.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and when you get to the point where he has his big confession over killing additives, it's played more for comedy.
Yes.
You made a point
Yes.
about a lot of like characters making silly faces at what should be tense moments.
Oh, this is my general complaint with everything, and it makes me a real curmudgeon, and I know it. I call it the Marvel movie thing because that's just what I feel sparked the whole fucking trend. But it's any moment of high tension has to be diffused for a laugh. And it's because it's a guaranteed way to get a laugh and a react in the cinema. And that's considered a win, like how fucking clickbait is seen as engagement. And then therefore it's a win. Any reaction is good. But it completely ruins tension, which is an important part of, I feel like, media.
Yeah.
And every single high moment of tension in adults and kids media now seems to have a wry little quip, a smug little observation, or just a stupid expression just to make sure we all know we can chuckle. The one that sticks in my head was when he jumped on the ball of rat tails and they'd done the really cool breaking of the dam and Maurice just becoming cat again. And he just had to do the stupid expression as he reached the like ball tails. I was like, no, come on. Like,
Yeah, no, I get
just
what you
let him
mean.
have a moment of anger.
I did like that we got a literal dark wood and the characters wandering through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very good, very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
All
This
of the
is
surroundings were very cool.
Oh yeah, the town looked beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I think the sewers were done really well. They were very, as you'd imagine, and very creepy as well.
Yeah, nicely spaced out.
Mm.
Like you can see that as the kind of maze that the book is talking about.
That's a win on animation, isn't it?
That's
You
very
can
much a
have
win
the
on
weird
animation
angles that
that
you
you
try
could
showing
not
a
film
sewer
in.
system like that on a film without an insane budget.
Are there any other big changes you've got a strong opinion on?
Mm, no, no, not huge opinions. No, and I mean, as I say, I would say, out of all of those, many of these are just complaints for the sake of we're talking about it. Out of all of that, the one thing I do object to is like the lack of any real tension, because I feel like they're thinking that kids can't deal with it. And I don't think that's true, but I understand that you don't want complaints from parents, so.
But we speak as a generation traumatized by a wildebeest stampede.
Yeah, now that I did have nightmares over.
Okay, yes, I think that's justified. I'm not going to make fun of you for having nightmares about that.
Not on camera, only so you can see them like the good guy the second we hang up, listeners.
I will be texting
She's going to be
Francine.
texting me gifs of Simba with Mufasa, like just before I go to sleep every night.
Constantly sending you pictures of wildebeest.
Brother.
So what bits in the film made you proper laugh out loud?
Dead rat chain, obviously.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Because we're gross, I guess. The at the same time as being horrified, the mime creeping about like a fucking spider. The Pied Piper rather. And I did say that this is the filmmakers justifying Pratchett's hatred of mimes, I think.
It had mime vibes. He wasn't in black and white, but it had very much mime vibes.
Yeah. And the brawl actually at the rat pit, I know I just said like, it wasn't really shown as something bad, but I quite liked just the way everyone was very into the fight straight away. The woman jumped over the pit just to hit someone because she could.
There's a chicken. A chicken is never not funny in that kind of situation, especially when animated.
And I've written the line here, and I remember laughing at it, but I can't remember the context now. 2 days it's been, but I haven't learned anything. Where's that from?
Oh God, I can't remember now. It's been 2 days, Francine.
That's not ideal.
I think that was a Keith line. As much as I kind of complain that they dumb down Keith's character a bit, he does get some very funny moments as a result of it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that made me laugh the most was his kind of confused awe at Militia. And even Maurice, who is a bit more able to deal with it, kind of going, I think this is just happening now and we're going with it. Like, I very much enjoyed that energy.
Yeah, just go with, this is not a force that is worth trying to stop right now.
And everything about how Militia does the very intense, like, so this is the story, and this is what's happening, and this is what we're going to do next, and this is how it all works, and I'm very excited about it. Like, I love that.
Yeah, me too. The conspiracy flailing is real with Militia.
It's really relatable.
I'm not sure why she has tiny feet, but apart from that, excellent.
There's a lot of good Easter eggs as well for the nerds watching.
Many.
I want to watch it again because I'm pretty sure we didn't get all of them between us.
No, definitely not. I've got Twerp's Peerage was featured at one point.
Prominently displayed in Militia's library.
Mm-hmm. We've got a few of the rat illustrations from the book were featured within the film. That was quite cool.
The rat language is, especially at the end when you see the town square and where the rats are living, you see them giving lessons in the rat language, and it's straight from the book.
Yeah.
That was a really lovely detail.
We've got in the office. Whose office?
In the mayor's office.
In the mayor's office, the gorgeous Discworld constellation.
Yeah, the great Artuan sort of painting-y.
And then the big one, of course.
The bust.
The bust of Pratchett. Pallid bust of Paris. With not a raven perched atop it, but a Maurice. Still is sitting on that pallid bust of Pratchett perched above my chamber door.
Not an Easter egg, but a detail I really liked is that when the film is explaining how the rats are intelligent, and showing the magical rubbish heap and the rubbish heap of the Unseen University, it is perfect. It looks exactly how I imagined it.
Also, did you see like the bucket of like goop? Didn't that seem like a paint icon to you, like an MS Paint icon? That was quite cool. I liked that quite a lot. Also just little, not even Easter eggs, but just cool little real attention to detail, beautiful bit. The fact there were pollarded trees.
Oh yes,
dotted down the roads and like just made it look like somewhere where people lived. The fact that the Mr. Bunsey book, as they were flicking through it, it would be like there's Ollie the snake, and here's the character that looks the most like him within the rats. Like there was a physical mirror of each of the characters, which was quite cool, even though they're all different species. Really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. The like just stuff like the illustrations on the exo rat poison, just like the branding they've done for all these fiction. It seems extremely what Pratchett would have done. Just spent
Yeah.
all this time really world building just for the tiniest bits.
There's so much fun little detail. And again, I think that's a fun benefit of animation is you can do that without like spending giant amounts of money on a props department who have to make like say labels for poison tins.
You said something about the fountain. I didn't catch what you'd said.
Oh, so there's a fountain in the town square and it's a dragon, but it looks like a dragon coming out of a toilet. And I'm assuming it's a reference to the dragon of unhappiness coming out of someone's toilet and flying up their bottom.
Oh, yes.
Like it's a dragon coming out of a toilet, so that it must be a reference to that and not just someone's silly idea, because that would be a super weird coincidence if it was.
Yes. Oh, and we got Rincewind and Twoflower.
Yeah. And
we saw a wizard and I was like, that's Rincewind. And then you saw his hat and I was like, that's Rincewind. And I was looking at that so hard I didn't even see Twoflower. You mentioned him.
Who was wearing a Hawaiian shirt taking a picture of Rincewind when the town's gone touristy at the end.
Yes.
So that was a delightful Easter egg.
And I hear that that the luggage is in there somewhere, but I missed him.
Yeah, we didn't see the luggage because Paul Kidby is credited in the film as they used his designs for Rincewind, Twoflower, the Death of Rats, and the luggage.
Ah.
That's Paul Kidby's like specific credit. They've used his design.
You know, the dragon just had a thought. I remembered seeing a dragon in a bathroom scenario in a picture, and there's a dragon in a bath on the cover of Dragons at Crumbling Castle and Other Stories, and I've never read that.
Oh, I don't know if I've read it. I think I've got a copy of it.
So I wonder if it could also be that. I wouldn't be surprised if Pratchett had the toilet dragon in more than one thing.
Quite possibly. But I'm going to stick with my Dragon of Unhappiness theory because I like it.
Oh, yeah, no, I think yours is probably most likely. I was just hoping in my head that I'd seen a picture of it somewhere, but no, I was thinking of the cover of the book I've not read.
But yeah,
obviously.
Details, absolutely delightful. Listeners, if we missed any as well, point them out to us.
Yeah, do. We're going to have to at some point, like buy the films we can go through frame by frame when that's a thing we can do.
I'll be grabbing it when it comes out on DVD and having a much more intense rewatch.
Because it is beautiful. It's beautiful throughout. I feel bad because I feel like I was critical through a lot of this, like reviewing, and I know I keep saying that, but I did really enjoy the film, and I think it was largely because of all the world building, like effort they put into it. Like it was done with so much love. It was obviously just done with so much care and love and like respect towards what Pratchett made.
I mean, let's talk about this. Why do you like this so much better than the other adaptations you've watched?
So I was wondering about that, and I think there's a couple of bits. First of all, it is that, like all the stuff I've said already, just the fact despite they did tone it down quite a lot, they didn't try and like patronize anybody with it. They did what they did to make it a film, and I don't really like films that much, so most of what I've like criticized is probably just why I don't watch films that much. But like this more than the others, I guess it's a smaller scale, I think, which helps. So it's not fucking Color of Magic. You're not trying to do an epic adventure on a small budget.
Yeah.
And it is a bigger budget, which helps. It's animated and good budget animation. It's not soul music.
Yeah.
So I think the reason Hogfather worked a lot better than Color of Magic, like Fantastic, or just Color of Magic as it was called, wasn't it? Was partly because it was a lot more contained. It was a smaller story within smaller bits, smaller location, set, whatever. However you do it. I don't know how you make movies, but but with this animation, they did that even though they didn't have to, and I think it worked a lot better. They kept it within the town, within the sewer, and yes, they expanded a little bit. We went to the Widewood and the weird open showdown arena that every small town has. Yeah, I think it's just a mixture of smaller scale, better production, and it's not fair to say that none of the others put care and attention into it, because they obviously did, but you can see it in this because it's like such crystal clear fucking animation on a cinema screen.
Yeah.
It's quite possible that in Color of Magic there were loads and loads of those little details that I missed. But I watched it on a shit TV at home, and it was it was before 4K was a thing. So
yeah,
who knows? But yeah, I mean, how do you think it sizes up to the other ones?
I think it's probably tied with of the ones we've discussed. It's probably tied with Hogfather for first place.
Okay.
Like I do like the Color of Magic adaptation, even though it's super inaccurate to the book and the casting's completely off and it has a lot of problems. Like, I still think it's just a fun thing to watch.
It was just the gurning for me.
It's just woefully miscast David Jason, but he's perfectly cast in Hogfather,
Yeah,
and I think
like doing that.
Hogfather is obviously, it's a very different thing. It's not a kid's book. It's not trying to be a kid's film. It is quite kind of family friendly enough that you could watch it at Christmas, but it still goes into the deep stuff that the book does, which is where I think it has the edge on this one. But this one is just a fun thing to sit and watch. Like, I would quite happily watch this again at Christmas. I'd quite happily like watch this with my nephew.
Yeah.
I think it sizes up really well, not just as an adaptation, but as an introduction to the Discworld.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? As an introduction to a lot of the more serious themes that they've had to tone down.
Yeah.
Really, as an introduction, not a deep dive.
Yeah, they're not there. They're just not gone into in any depth.
You get to meet death.
You do get to meet death.
Even if we don't go all the way to someone dying. We get to meet the idea of, even though we didn't see the ratty politics so much, we saw the idea of cooperation, but also remaining individuals.
Yes.
If this had been made in the 1960s, it would have been an anti-communist piece of propaganda.
Exactly.
All of the rat kings would have had little sickles and hammers stamped on their foreheads, but but as it is, it's a weird cryptid fucker, which is much better.
Yeah, so overall thoughts, that was a good film. I had a lot of fun. If you've decided to listen to this having not gone to see the film, I highly recommend finding a way to watch it. Yeah, I think you will enjoy it.
Yeah, even though we just read we didn't really go through the plot point by point, did we? We didn't summary it.
No.
You know what the plot is if you've read the book, pretty much, but not all of it, actually. There's still a lot of twists and turns.
There's room for surprise.
Mm.
And no, it's not a perfect adaptation, because a perfect adaptation wouldn't be a good film.
No. The complaints I have are complaints to my personal tastes. And I think most of them were the correct call for this situation. I would just obviously prefer it if everybody made films to suit me in particular. A 31-year-old who does not go and see films.
I do actually have one last complaint I forgot to mention.
All right, let's end on a negative note. Go on.
Let's end on a negative note. No, Keith does get a bit of manifesting some magical destiny towards the end there, which
does he? Oh, he does. Yes, quite right.
He does. And it's nice for him. It's a happy moment. It's fun. And it works in the movie, but it just, for me, I would prefer it to be the way it is in the book, and he doesn't have a magical destiny. Because
the power was in your heart all along, Joanna, not in the... They just murdered a guy in the woods for no reason.
Yeah. But the power was
he had mass murdered children implied, but that was still quite a... Someone did die. Fuck. They burnt a man alive.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No, let's step back for a second. These children are a menace.
Wait, no, they threw him down a well.
They threw him into an oven.
Yeah, but then he got out of the oven and fell down the well.
Oh, did they? I was making a note. They tried to burn a man alive.
Listeners, the point is, the power is in your hearts.
And if you feel like a random man in the woods might have murdered a lot of children, apparently it's fine to kick him into an oven.
And then throw him down a well. Because the power is in your hearts.
A coherent moral message. My name isn't Militia, whatever I said. Name is Grim. Remember that.
Right, I think that's all we can say about the Amazing Maurice movie before we go completely off the rails.
We stamped the fourth wall into dust.
I guess throw a timestamp here, listeners, if you skipped our Maurice chat and you've come back. Hi, we won't spoil it for you.
Now we're going though. Bye. That was weird.
We are coming back on so this will be coming out Christmas Eve. Again, I haven't got a full schedule for next year yet, but I can tell you we're coming back on the 9th of January to begin our discussion of Nightwatch.
Yes.
We're very excited.
A little dark.
Just a little.
That's going to be some. Well, it's going to be some emotions. There's going to be some political emotions, just some good old fashioned trauma emotions in there. There's some. Yeah, I'm not going to spoiler it.
Some singing.
A little bit of singing, tuneless, but there.
Tuneless.
Often obscene.
So until January, dear listeners, if you'd like to get in touch, you can follow us on Instagram at The Truth Shall Make You Fret, on Twitter at Make You Fret Pod, on Facebook at The Truth Shall Make You Fret. Join our subreddit community, r/TTSMYF. You can email us your thoughts, queries, castles, snacks, rats, and 4 heaving pigs pulling a sleigh, The Truth Shall Make You Fret Pod at gmail.com. If you would like to support this nonsense financially, you can go to patreon.com/The Truth Shall Make You Fret.
Just remember the video's coming out. Sorry.
And exchange your hard-earned pennies for all sorts of stuff. If you are on our Patreon already, a recipe might have come out. Recipes incoming. There'll be a rabbit hole probably the first week of January, because I'm being realistic about what I can do between now and Christmas.
Yes.
And until next year, dear listener, have a very, very merry Hogswatch.
And don't let us detain you.
Sorry, that was really half-assed.
Oh, it's fine. I can paste in a
Actual
obnoxiously
bell noise.
loud one.